everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on extended reality. We have our world famous speaker for today's dialogue, Professor David Smith, Professor Rob, and Mr. Marshall. First, I would like to give chance Professor David Smith.
Thank you so much, Sharif. Always great topics you choose for the shows. Extended reality, XR, it's really an umbrella term that includes technologies such as augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, and it's there to either provide more information about our actual environment, to enhance our senses, our understanding, or to create a really completely different artificial experiences. Extended reality is an idea that's been around for a long time. It was actually first envisioned way back in 1935 in a story called Pygmalion Spectacles, where the author saw a pair of goggles that allowed moviegoers to taste, smell, and touch imaginary things and to talk to the characters. And then you begin to see it moving forward with, like in the 60s, a cinematographer created Sensorama and others to move it. But while extended reality is really in its growing pains, it's really taken off a lot more. The market forecast for it is that in 2027 it will hit, let's see, where is that one? $220 billion, and it's growing at a compound annual growth rate of 57.91%. So really beginning to take off there. You begin to see it in how it's going. Just the XR marketplace by its side and not the other things underneath it is 31 billion in US dollars in 2021, and is really, like I said, on a very big uptake. On a market penetration side, the US and Asian Pacific, particularly Japan and South Korea, it's really on an uptake there and what's happening with it. It's one that is really fun to play with, and it really is an extension of the real world because it really takes us and tries to engage all our senses as we are using it to augment what we're doing in the world around us. The whole area of virtual reality, extended reality, augmented reality, the whole metaverse concept are ones that are coming together today as we begin to see and how it can be used, how we look at the elements, how we can not just use it as entertainment, but move it into things that we're doing every day and to become part of our day-to-day life, which is the goal of this technology going forward. It's going to be an exciting time, a lot of new opportunities we can get into. But as a first intro, let me stop there and let the others jump in.
Thank you. Professor Rob, what are the few examples you want to add from extended reality industry and what extended reality be used for?
Well, as David mentioned, extended reality is an umbrella term, and it contains the elements of augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. Augmented reality is when you take computer-generated information and overlay it on reality. So with AR glasses, which are non-occlusive, in other words, the information floats as if it's a ghost in your vision as you're walking through real life. What you get is say the names of people you're looking at, information on the buildings that surround you, maybe pointers to places that might be interesting to eat or see. Think of it as kind of a GPS system that's attached to your eyeballs and gives you more information about the environment you're in, or could be even fictional stuff, but it's not occlusive. So in other words, the images are ghost-like, and you can see through them. Then you move to virtual reality. Virtual reality is kind of the exact opposite. It's full occlusion. You don't see the real world at all. Everything is computer generated. You're living in a video game. I should say that augmented reality is particularly good for training and for field support, so that somebody in the field can receive instructions. The person that's remote can see what they're doing, and they can get instructions in terms of what it is they need to do, or get information on what they're working on while they're doing it. The leading technology is probably Microsoft's HoloLens in this space, developed in conjunction with Lawrence Livermore Labs. Now, virtual reality. Virtual reality is when you include everything, and the entire world is computer generated, so you live or you're operating in what looks like a video game. This is particularly good for training and for entertainment. The leading headset is arguably Facebook's Oculus, and that's the one that's in most wide use. And you can use it for exercise, you use the game, and you can use it for immersive training. Say if you wanted to train on something that you couldn't physically access or see, this would take you through a training module, and you wouldn't be distracted by whatever's going on in the real world. Now, mixed reality gets kind of interesting because it blends the two elements. That's where you take, and the headsets tend to be VR headsets with cameras. But you could also be AR headsets that do occlusion, where the things that are generated block out the real things that are in place. That's where you interplay computer-generated items with reality. So if you wanted to walk down the street and look at what a new building would look like on the street it's being built before it's built, you'd use mixed reality, where you could look at the entire environment, see the building, the proposed landscaping in conjunction with what was already there. Another use for it is, say, placement of furniture in a home, space planning in a business, where you could walk through and virtually place all the items you wanted to place, and you would automatically, or the system would automatically occlude anything that you digitally erased. So at some point you could have a video game where you're playing in your neighborhood and everything would be misrepresented. The Roku's Reward on YouTube was an HP effort to showcase what that might be like in the future. It was done, I think, almost 20 years ago. But it kind of showcases this idea of being able to move through a real environment with virtual elements popping up, and being able to interact with those virtual elements. And at the end of Roku's Reward, he gets to kiss the princess, which would certainly require some feeling mechanization to make that a little bit more realistic than kissing nothing. But the idea is the same. The mixed reality requires the highest degree of computing power, and it's probably best for simulation when you're trying to simulate something that is under development, but simulated as it would act in the real world. So if you wanted to take a virtual robot that was being programmed and trained and drop it into a real manufacturing environment and see how it would act without actually rolling over people or causing accidents, you might use mixed reality to do that, so you could see the thing in real time. Mixed reality, because it's the most expensive, it requires that you render everything, but you're capturing and rendering the real world at the same time. The occlusion approach hasn't been credibly done yet, where you automatically just block the real item and overlay it with something else. So far, mixed reality is largely a fully rendered environment where you capture reality, the real image, and then you interweave it so it's indistinguishable from reality. One of the early prototypes I got to play with was one where you'd be sitting in your office, and then suddenly the roof of the office is ripped off, and a giant hand comes in and attempts to grab you. It's pretty amazing when it happens, because you've got everything that you know around you. It looks very real, and suddenly stuff that looks real is being ripped apart by something that is rendered and marginally photorealistic. We get to photorealism with that stuff, and gameplay is going to go through the roof. But it does allow for advanced simulation, and as I say, it's the most expensive of the three. So that's kind of how you use it. Each of the underlying elements that make up extended reality at this point, and where they are.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. If you share some of your experience about this mixed reality currently used in gaming industry, especially the games and this industry.
Certainly. Well, first of all, two points, Sharif. I think both David and Rob have framed what this is. It's a complex subject matter because it's an overlay of different types of realities, in plural, and extended reality is an interplay amongst these. Some of them are more advanced than others, as both Rob and David have pointed out. Um, I actually had when I was I met, I guess it was in the 1960s, as David pointed out. I actually participated in a movie theater when the first time I had ever come across a XR. It wasn't XR. It was kind of a format where you'd go into a movie theater, you'd put on glasses, and you'd see a different type of movie than if you took the glasses off. It was very, very intriguing. But in terms of it's going to transform society tremendously. It's already having an effect on people, and it's also has health and safety issues. So about 2 years ago, I participated in crafting a psychological study for a virtual reality program that allowed us to determine how people react to this psychologically. And so I was able to participate in that. I can tell you that that certain people are doing studies on the health and safety of this. In other words, how does it affect people's psychological sense of reality, and what does it do? Can it help people that have, let's say, psychological problems, such as psychotic episodes and things like that? Can you deal with that? So there's a lot of experimentation going on with XR, in both, not just in gaming, but also in helping people in healthcare, especially in mental health care. The other aspect of this, Sharif, is that my experience is that besides my personal experience in this, what I've seen is that the concept mostly came about for entertainment purposes, but is now extending itself into other areas, such as I said, such as mental health issues. It can be used by psychologists and psychiatrists to help in the treatment of certain mental illnesses. It's also being used on the factory floor to be able to help people, as David pointed out, train people, but also being used to actually monitor processes. And that is going to be, I think, the up and coming forefront of this extended reality that we're going to see. And again, because it's complex, it's a mixture of virtual reality and these other types of reality situations. And I think the key word here is reality. And we're all used to our own reality. We're all used to going about without anything superficial being introduced into our day-to-day behaviors. But we're starting to see that as people take this on. I know that there are people, I don't personally do this, but I know that people take and have these extended reality games that they're participating in, and it's quite competitive and quite and quite enticing. In fact, I would say that some people that I know, youngsters, teenagers, some of them become addicted to it in a way, not addicted literally, but they become consumed by it, and they spend a lot of their time in that world. So that's my first take on this.
Thank you. Professor David Smith, already you give the answer, but I think our audience love to learn more and need some detail what is the main purpose of extended reality. And we need some industrial experience or some case study from the industry. Especially, I personally love to learn that every when we discuss about different technological topic, you give some prediction. So how actually the Western world, first world, they actually measure this kind of business prediction?
Yeah, that's really great questions as you're asking them there. As you begin to look at where this plays and where it's going, the industries are very broad. We can talk about them, but some of the challenges you were speaking about there is, the whole range of extended reality has some high costs still as you look at. Therefore, it's really primarily appealing to companies or target groups who are fairly tech savvy or who they're incorporated into a process flow. Uh, data privacy is a challenge with it because lots of detailed as well as a lot of personal data is collected with the use of extended reality. And for this requirement, the whole ability to comply with data protection requirements is huge. You have still digital and technical challenges, just like Sharif on the broadcast with you. We often have internet problems from different parts of the world. That same internet problems will affect extended reality too, because they're mostly served over the internet and take a high resolution approach, a lot of bandwidth, a lot of computer processing power. And to answer the question on what are some of the constraints on a mobile AR experience, that is some of the biggest ones, is that you have the bandwidth and you have the ability that you're processing a whole lot of information as a constraint there. You see the development and design of this. There's some of the applications that are more suited for it than others. One of them, particularly in the gaming industry and in the education industry, that's used very often is a development platform called Unity. Many of the large multiplayer games are written using that as part of their engine and how they are put into it. The main purpose of it, though, is that it will let you become part of a synthesis environment. You can create a virtual environment and become part of it. You can see things in it that are not even in existence yet and begin to merge the physical world and the digital world and your own personal infosphere. And the personal infosphere is what is becoming more and more important as we move down the road into the metaverses and other things as well. Because one of the impacts of COVID is that we're doing more and more things remotely, less things in person. This is a way where your virtual world and your whole concept of your own infosphere fuse together and can be used there very effectively. And so far, entertainment, education have been the biggest use, but you're seeing them going further. You're seeing this technology beginning to be used in events like concert and sporting events. You're seeing it beginning to be used for marketing, for product presentations, other ways. Real estate has taken a huge uptake in using the different types of extended reality, from showing properties to designing new properties used in every step of the area. You're beginning to see it used in e-commerce. And you're seeing it used a lot in training now, particularly where you're simulating dangerous or risky situations. I'd much rather use my Halo lens and look at the inside of a nuclear reactor than have to walk into that nuclear reactor and begin to do things with it. We're seeing it used in construction. I made the comment, and I got to go and tour it with their Texas-sized barbecue grand opening, the Tesla new factory here, where a lot of the manufacturing used extended reality as part of the process, from visualizing stuff to understanding where equipment was going to fit as you put electricity and other plumbing and stuff into place, into even the regulatory approvals, where you had building inspectors using it to dramatically fast track the approvals of the construction going on. So a lot of different areas like that. The last question is, what are the main challenges for Android developers in putting extended reality into their apps? It really gets back to what I would say. It's limitations of the display, how you can begin to use it. Typically with Androids, you put a box over the screen and use that as part of the display, but you can use it as the other. I think the better environments are using like the Oculus lenses or the Microsoft Halo lens or the 8 or 9 other manufacturers which have come to market with these type of lenses as opposed to adapting our mobile devices to be the display mechanism. Uh, the other part that is part of extended reality, which goes other, is something that's called a virtual reality cave, extended reality cave, where it's an environment created that is totally immersible, and you actually can be part of it and walk through it. The first time I saw this used was one of the big oil companies in Houston had created this one room which had over 20 video projectors in it, and it was creating an extended reality to walk through the oil reserves that they discovered underground by using seismic and LIDAR and other things to read it, to where, as opposed to looking at a screen, you could actually walk by and in pseudo 3D understand that environment and be able to better analyze it, to better put plans in place to be able to do directional drilling to go into it and tap the reserves. So that I think that answered your question.
Yes, thank you, Professor David Smith. Professor Rob, you know that already there are a few questions from audience, so you can respond according to your uh, like preference.
Well, so let's start with the last first. So the challenge for Android developers is much of the activity right now with virtual reality is going on the Oculus platform, which is a different operating platform. There isn't a ton of work right now with Android and VR. Google tends to have the interest in a project of a 4-year-old on sugar, and they're not all that focused on virtual reality at the moment. They're off doing other things. So Oculus is the platform for VR, and the leading platform for AR, at least in industrial use, is Microsoft's HoloLens platform, which of course is Microsoft platform based, Windows based. So the problem for Android developers is there's not a lot in mixed reality that's going on in the Android environment at the moment, even though it was one of the first environments to get involved in AR and VR. But now it's either Oculus or Windows, depending on where it is you're fundamentally working, or some other proprietary platform. What constraints affect a mobile AR experience? Occlusion seems to be the issue in making a mobile AR experience really work for a lot of folks. It's the ability to actually block out the real thing and create images that appear solid. So really moving AR to more of a mixed reality environment is the heavy lifting that will be needed to really allow mixed reality and AR to stand up. There have been some interesting efforts. Jaguar, for instance, was experimenting in turning the entire windshield into an AR screen and putting things like navigation right up in front of you rather than the heads-up display that's on the lower part of the screen. You just have the arrow point to the actual street you're going to turn on as the street approaches, and also point to things that could be dangerous. As we move to autonomous driving, particularly as we implement Guardian Angel, expect to see some of that stuff come forward where your windscreen, your windshield, will become a partial display and point out things you might have missed. Let's say a child running at you from the right or left. It will highlight and warn you, and then of course, as the systems get more advanced, the car will react automatically, and eventually, of course, take you out of the loop entirely. Some of the automotive AR and VR experiments that are going on now that are interesting. A couple of years back at CES, they turned all the windows in the car into screens, and the idea was as you'd go on a long trip, the car would be driving itself, and you could look out at any world those screens wanted to show. You could be driving through a western town and watching a shootout as you're going through, flying through Harry Potter's world or the world of imaginary or real dinosaurs, whatever. But the view outside of the car could then be whatever the technology would display, and the sounds you'd hear in the car would go along with it. And you go through a tunnel, you're going through a tunnel of hell with demons trying to crawl into the car. And really would turn that long driving trip into an adventure. Of course, that does require the car drive itself because the level of distraction would be extreme. Defending yourself for running a stoplight because you were being chased by a demon probably isn't going to get you out of the ticket. So that's how it's playing in those areas. The main purpose of extended reality, remember, that's a superset. So it's really the main purpose of AR, VR, and mixed reality. Each are separately focused. AR mostly on training and field work, VR on simulation and gaming, and then mixed reality, a blend of all of them, which means it could play in any of those areas. The issue with all of these things are the headsets. Much like we had a problem with 3D movies and 3D television, people do not like to wear prosthetics, and in effect, the headset is a prosthetic. It can be relatively heavy. The HoloLens headset that Microsoft has puts the technology all in the headset, as does the Oculus headset from Facebook and Meta. And those can get kind of tiring after a long time. The lighter weight AR glasses are usable, but so far, and I've had several sets of them, the amount of information they convey and their battery life is somewhat limited. So you get light enough, but you're still wearing glasses. We're now working on contact lenses, which would then place the technology in your eye. A lot of folks aren't really fond of contact lenses either, but it would give you the ability to see the information real time without actually having to wear the glasses. But getting over the prosthetic aspect of this for long-term wear is critical. Lenovo, for instance, did a variant on Microsoft's HoloLens where they put a lot of the weight on your waist as opposed to your head, and it did allow people to wear those headsets far longer on shift. And I believe Boeing shifted from Microsoft's headsets to Lenovo headsets over time for that very reason, because people weren't wearing them for a full shift, and having all of that weight on your head for a full shift without some cable taking some of the weight off your head got kind of tiring. And so for manufacturing line and assembly work, the weight becomes kind of an issue here. We're still at the very beginning of this. Expect by the time we get to the 2040s, this technology will be far more seamless, and the idea that we might be walking through our homes and offices, which might just be white, no colors at all, and then see whatever colors that we wanted or that we found the most pleasing or the most motivational while we were walking through. Might only wear white coveralls, and people will see you as whatever clothing that you digitally coded into the framework, and and you'd never have to have a wardrobe. I mean, you wouldn't have a wardrobe. You wore something that was warm and comfortable, and people would see whatever they wanted to see, from futurific space clothes to clothing from the 19th century. And clearly, the porn industry is going to get very engaged here, and we're going to have a whole lot of issues with regard to what they're doing. I should point out, pornography is one of the areas where virtual reality does play very heavily, and we never really talk about for a whole lot of reasons. But the purpose of this is to really overlay reality at differing degrees with virtual images, and then other technologies that are coming forward to make this all work are 2D treadmills that you can move in multiple directions. Accessories that feel like the things you're playing. So if you're in a combat simulation, you get an accessory that feels like a gun. It doesn't look like a gun. That's one of the things that really bothers me a lot when I'm playing a virtual reality game, is the controllers don't feel at all like what it is I'm supposed to be using. A tennis racket, a gun, a sword, or whatever. They just feel like the controllers that they are. And so in carrying this forward, having accessories that feel like what it is you're using, or using haptics to fool you into thinking that you're carrying something else, will be critical to the experience, as is adding things like moisture, wind, smells. All of that stuff is coming in the future. We've mucked around with smells a lot on and off with various degrees of unsuccess to date, but they're all being worked, and they're very, very possible by the time we get to 2040, we'll be able to step into a virtual reality environment where we'll notice the headset, but everything else will be incredibly real, from the smells to the feel, to even the impact of things hitting you across your body, because there are things we already have today called haptic vests that allow you to feel what things that hit your body and touch you. So it's an amazing world. It'll be an amazing future.
Thank you, Professor Rob. Mr. Marshall, you are from industry. Do you believe that different industry, those who solving climate change related problem, they can use this extended reality for their project, and it can help more to create awareness in the real world?
That's an excellent question, Sharif. And I do believe that we're going to see the adoption of extended reality and mixed reality technology into the process of addressing the climate crisis. One area that we know that it's heading is people who are operating systems that convert waste into thermally into products. They're in an environment that usually or typically they're either outside walking around the system, or they're looking on a computer screen at how the system is operating. What virtual reality and augmented reality and mixed reality give us the future, it hasn't happened yet, but I know people are working on it, is the ability for the operators to actually, as Rob pointed out and David, they'll be trained on this technology without having to be next to the technology, but it actually then simulate it, but then actually get to operate the technology using a form of augmented reality or virtual reality or mixed reality. And what we're seeing already is that, and this is something I don't know if the others have come across, but I have, that Rob talked about the headsets and how big they are and how heavy they are. That's not conducive to operating a system, obviously, especially where there's high temperature involved and material processing through where people can get injured. So what I've heard about, I haven't seen it yet, but somebody's talked to me about, is they're creating a augmented reality, mixed reality suit, sort of like a jumpsuit, like what a pilot might wear, so that a lot of the equipment is distributed over the body and not in the headset per se. There's still a headset, but it's a lighter headset and it's connected to the rest of the suit. That will be interesting to see if that actually makes a difference, especially in an industrial process. Because if you're on a factory floor or if you're out in the field and you're in the area where you're, let's say, where you're exposed to the elements, but at the same time, you're processing material like a lot of waste, which can be toxic to humans, and then you're going to thermally convert it into some material. You want to make sure that the people are not just protected, but this might extend the protection of the people by having these types of suits to wear so that they can operate the systems in a safe format. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Professor David Smith, as you are from industries, my question is that, like, these are the new technology, these are the new things. I believe in developing world, even in Asia, many countries has many universities. But this is true. This is true. We are observing, we are engaging with more people, more university, more academy, and we try to understand where is the gap. There is a huge gap in between industrial four revolutions and the present academic situations. What is your advice? How we can upgrade this education system? And in some point, how students spend their money. We have many students, they are complaining. It's actually a huge problem for them. Even we are bringing more students for research. In some point, they feel very bad. So how we can help these young people and solve this educational problem?
Well, Sharif, that's a question that there's not a simple answer for. The education system is, I believe, right now in an inflection point where you're going to see changes made globally in the education system. Already, particularly in some of the fields such as programming, you're seeing the traditional college, university type of education being replaced by more of a continuous model, more boot camps, more online instruction, and less of a traditional college type of experience. Research is still primarily carried out in university and colleges, but one of the interesting trends, particularly going back and looking at some of the more significant Nobel Prize winners of the last 2 decades, has been that more and more of that work is being done at multiple institutions. And so collaboration and using things like extended reality as part of that collaboration is one of the things that will happen as the science-based research continues to happen. To prepare students for working in extended reality, it's really the same multidisciplinary approach as many of the others, where a computer science background, a visualization background, a art graphics background, a mechanical engineering, electrical engineering background comes into play. And even going and looking at more of the softer academic programs such as writing, English, philosophy, literature, those all can come into play in looking at the different areas of extended reality. What is kind of missing in some of the extended reality are subject matter experts who can step up and understand the technology well enough to work with technologists and fuse the elements together to transition from physical into an extended reality is not just let's make a decision to do it. It takes planning. The approaches are different. In virtual reality and in augmented reality, there's often talk about the noise that comes into it, and they don't mean audible noise. What they mean is how the reality you are seeing through the lenses, through the headsets, are not the same as a physical reality. And that noise that is in there is one of the things that kind of hampers some of the uses of extended reality. On the other hand, you can see how combining the technologists, the artists, the graphics, the developers, with the subject matter experts, particularly in areas like sports and others, can create a whole new outcome. And we're seeing that the whole esports movement is moving very rapidly towards different types of extended reality as part of that to further push that along. Many of the newer games, many of the newer education approaches are doing that. So again, it's a complex answer to your question, and the education environment is having to shift. Education itself, the science of education is going to be impacted by extreme reality technologies considerably as we go forward. And so it's a fairly comprehensive view. And where we'll really see the transition on that is probably in the next 10 to 12 years is where we'll have a crossover point on that.
Excellent. Professor Rob, my question is
Yeah.
that do you believe that for solving this complex problem, because this is really complex problem,
Which problem?
like what the education industry producing right now, like they are producing many students because of the syllabus, because of this industrial gap, like gap in between industry and academic knowledge, students are suffering. We actually getting lot of students, those who actually think that maybe we have to restructure this process, educational process. So
Right.
what do you think? It's like we can invite more industrial people like you to the academy to train these people, or how does it work? How we can get a good result as early as possible?
Well, to solve any problem, you first have to define it. I know in the United States, I've been reading reports that we've got a significant problem here with students doing their coursework. They're not showing up to class. They're not doing the homework. The pandemic has really demotivated them. And the practical matter is a lot of what they're being taught in school they may never apply. A lot of theory, a lot of concept, and a lot of teachers that are just kind of going through their daily work 9 to 5 and not really thinking about the outcome, just kind of following through the syllabus and the course material. So there's a lot on both sides of this, commitment on the student side and probably arguably commitment on the instructor side in many cases to make things better. And what industry can do, or what people can do, is certainly guest lecture, come in and tell the students how they can apply what it is they're learning, what is it that's relevant. I knew when I was both graduate and undergraduate, some of the best days were when we got off the course material per se, and we got real scenarios of things that actually happened and how knowledge was applied to solve a real problem that had occurred in the past. These technologies, these mixed extended reality technologies, can be used to put the student in an environment, past, present, or future. Let them use the skills they're learning and apply them against models and problems that are created real time, instead of filling out a report or a paper. Actually experience what it would be like to do the job. Certainly much more beneficial in trade schools in particular than in 4 and 8-year universities. But certainly also very heavily used in medical. A lot of medical training now is being done with extended reality resources because it's a lot less expensive than using cadavers and certainly a lot less annoying, I think, than using cadavers. And then a lot of the training can be scaled. Also, if it's done properly, students can be put together in working groups where they help each other learn and further their knowledge. But it's my view, so much of school is so very dry and not applied that to offset that, to bring in expertise from outside, people that are doing the jobs that these people would eventually get to do, these students would eventually get to do, and also help them make their choices in terms of career path. It still amazes me the vast majority of students come out of college and they still don't really know what they want to do. They're in a career position, but just because you came out, say, with a legal degree, a Juris Doctorate, that doesn't necessarily mean you want to be an attorney. You might want to be a judge. You might want to be a clerk. You might want to be in law enforcement. No, I wouldn't go in law enforcement. But in the end, it's very troubling that the education institutions really don't turn out people that are ready for work. The really bad behavior practices. At the very least, we ought to be spending a great deal of time teaching students the basics of how to live, how to budget, how to prepare food, how to interact with the opposite sex, how to interact with each other, how to build friendships and constructive pools of friends that will help them throughout their careers. That's all stuff that we don't teach, and yet all of that is critical to a successful future. And we overemphasize folks like CEOs, and there aren't a lot of people that could do the CEO job well or would even want to. Yet we hold that up as kind of the pinnacle. Anybody could be president, anybody could be CEO, and that's a mistake. We should be pushing students to find their own best self and to find careers that they will enjoy doing. And really, in the early days of school, we should be taking them around, much like I was as a child, and visiting different workplaces and seeing how people work, and also visiting places like mental institutions and hospitals to showcase what can happen if you have a substance abuse problem, or happen if you break the law. An awful lot of kids get into trouble because they have no idea what the consequences of what they're doing are going to be, and learning about those consequences early can help keep them from experiencing those consequences real time later on in life. We should be focused on building a better tomorrow and building a better next generation, and instead we seem to be much too focused on just getting them through the education process and out of school. And I think our goals and motivations are wrong, and that's probably at the heart of the problems with the education institutions.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, what is your remarks on that particular point, and what is the concluding remarks for today?
Well, Sharif, I think that Rob hit the nail on the head here. I think we focus a lot on technology and hoping that will solve all the problems. I think from an educational point of view, and I think this program itself is an exemplar of how to go about doing it by having dialogue with people from different parts of the world and different disparate areas, from industry, from academia, from research, and bringing people together. And I think one of the things that happens in education is that we focus in on the tools, and we need to have a curriculum that allows us to address the issues of what people want to do. Now, interestingly enough, mixed reality can give that tool to a certain extent, but if we focus only on that, I think we're missing the boat. I think the students that you're fostering and the programs that you're doing, Sharif, are beneficial to people because we're taking an effort to try to improve people's lives. That's at the core mission. Underneath that comes all the pedagogical tools that we can give. The question would be, is mixed reality part of that pedagogical tool suite? I believe it can be, but I think the focus on that alone is a mistake. And I agree with Rob. I think we need to take more of a human approach, less of a technological approach to our education, which I know that you and your team do. So I think that's an important aspect. So my concluding remarks on this segment for mixed reality and virtual reality is it's a tool like any other tool. It has to be used in a cautious fashion. Obviously, none of us would want to be the people that are using scopes in open heart or brain surgery because we're not qualified for that. But by the same token, we can train people to do that kind of work over time. And I think that's where mixed reality comes into play: training and adaptation and execution. And as I pointed out in my earlier remarks, it can be used in, especially for the climate crisis, getting people up to speed quickly to be able to operate systems that are not only dangerous in and of themselves because of the heat and the material that you're handling, but also the training time that it gets people up to speed. So it can be used to speed up training, but I still think that, as Rob pointed out, it's the human element that we want to focus on, not so much the tools. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor David Smith, what's your concluding remarks for today's dialogue?
Oh, it's been, again, a wide-ranging discussion today as we look at these topics that are critical. We look at how countries and individuals can compete in this global economy. We're also seeing this type of technology beginning to be used in good fashion as we look at how to solve the problems, such as the environmental ones that Marshall talked about. We're seeing some of this technology used even as we look at the analysis work that's being done in the Russian-Ukraine war. This is technology that is commonly used in particularly the geospatial areas and others. And we're seeing the use of this combined with things like the advanced modeling simulation and even the digital twin concept being fused together as we look at these information challenges and understanding challenges that we have. Technology excels when it is solving a problem, and particularly a problem that impacts a lot of people. This technology has the ability to help solve those classes of problems, to help us see the world in a different way, to help us accelerate what we're doing, and to not only create new jobs, create new applications in science, but to take the ones that we have and be able to see them in a whole new light, in a whole different way. And we'll create innovations that way as well. So it's a technology that is ripe for entrepreneurs to get into and to accelerate. And it's right for universities and colleges and trade schools and even the public schools to begin to exploit and use the technology. I was on a phone call yesterday with a new private high school in the United States. And one of their claims is that they want to use this type of technology in 50% of their classes. And they're pulling together the curriculum to do that. I think you're going to see that become more and more the norm, particularly as we re-examine education in light of how it fared during COVID. And this is a technology that can help do it. So the time is now. I think we will see our growth curves increase even more steeply in the future than we had predicted prior to COVID. And I think that's a good thing as we move forward.
Thank you, Professor Rob. What's your concluding remarks?
Well, extended reality is probably the future, certainly of training, of field ops, gaming and entertainment. To some degree, the limiting factor is the headset and the nature of the prosthetics, and how immersive you can actually make it. The Tesla suit is the haptic suit that I think Marshall might have been referring to early on. You can look it up. That allows you to not only feel what's going on around you, but it instruments well with the environment, and so it can place your digital double, your digital twin, if you will, in that artificial environment, and then have it react and have the things around it react appropriately, creating a much higher degree of realism. Eventually, if you want to see a series upload, is an interesting concept on, I believe it's Netflix, where they're uploading a consciousness into a virtual world, and then people can visit that virtual world, and their now past relative that lives there. It's an interesting concept, but they also explore this idea of virtual reality suits, of haptic suits, placing somebody outside that environment, inside it, so they feel like they're there. But they do a nice job of kind of showcasing the limitations of the technology, as the woman that's wearing the suit has to place herself in a bathtub or some other secure area, so she doesn't wander around her apartment and destroy the place as she's trying to move around the virtual world. As any of us have experienced using a tethered virtual reality headset around furniture, you discover things with your shins rather violently that you didn't realize were there, or quite as painful as they turn out to be. And there's some hilarious stuff on YouTube of people wearing headsets and diving into televisions and tripping over furniture, showcasing some of the dangers. The fact is, we're nowhere near where we're going to be with this technology. It's a great area of study, a lot of headroom, and the technology, as David pointed out, can be applied to education and allow people to experience things they otherwise wouldn't. I mean, you could experience history as if you were a frontline reporter, as opposed to just reading about it, and make things certain things appear very real. A war looks very sexy and attractive until you're in the middle of it. And perhaps that would teach a bunch of our leaders that perhaps war isn't a viable outcome, because largely the negatives are underplayed and the positives are way overplayed, and that lands us in far more conflicts than I think we would have if people were far more realistic in what war entails. So in the end, it's a great tool. It has limitations today. Those limitations will be addressed, and I expect by 2040, it'll be hard to discern what is real from what is virtual. And we are actually exploring a ways to introduce virtual reality into environments without headsets, using advanced optics, lasers, and a variety of other technologies that could allow us to have something that very much approaches the holodeck experience in the Enterprise and Star Trek, which has always kind of been the goal for mixed reality and extended reality ever since the Next Generation program came out. It became a template for where we want to go, and so much so that there are videos up there of holoportation up on YouTube, both from NVIDIA, which showcased how their technology could be used to create a virtual presence and travel virtually, as well as those by Microsoft using their HoloLens, doing much the same thing. A very compelling video of a father talking to his remote child, and the child seeing the father as if he was there, and the father seeing the child as if she was there, showcasing a potential future for the technology to connect families over long distances, much more than our video cameras now, which we use when kids are out going off to school or whatever. So it's an area to study. It's an area that can help education a great deal. And it's a technology that can help us keep better in touch with our loved ones as it advances, but we're nowhere near where it's going to be.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Rob, Mr. Marshall, Professor David Smith, Professor Rob, all of them actually our board of advisor. You are also our board of advisor, and you are our chief strategy development for World Talent Economy Forum. So how you want to invite more people, actually our target for education, like from 16 to any age, they can join in World Talent Economy Forum. And we have School of Talent Economy. So even our board of directors, if they want to be a volunteer for this School of Talent Economy, so they can take class, maybe weekly 1 or 2 classes they can take. And beside that, we have our website for World Talent Economy Forum. I know you are excellent writer, so those who are interested to write any articles, you can write, and we're going to publish it, because many of the people around the world right now, they are utilizing World Talent Economy Forum content. So your contribution through class, through write-up, through open dialogue, maybe it can be more effective, because already we are taking some real life project from India, from Malaysia, from Singapore, from Africa, from Jordan. So your contribution will be helpful for the communities from these countries. So, Mr. Marshall, what is your appeal to the global community on behalf of World Talent Economy Forum?
So I think the basic appeal for everybody out there that is watching this is to, first of all, share the connection to this program ongoing. I think it contributes a lot to people in the developing world, and it connects them with the developed world in a way that kind of augmented reality can do. So it's quite a good topic today, Sharif, that it's appropriate, because it really lays into the foundation of the World Talent Economy Forum. What we're hoping to do, and doing it very soon, is to develop the method, and we want people to jump in and participate in spreading the word of the World Talent Economy Forum and what its purpose and what its mission is. But not only that, what they can accomplish by joining forces with this group. And I think they'll see tremendous opportunities. As we already know, Sharif, you and your team have already been able to deploy some programs in Rwanda, and we're doing some programs coming up for India, if not already being done. And that's going to spread even more throughout the developing world. The mission, as we see it, as your advisors, I think for the most part, and I'm just speaking for myself, I can't speak for Rob or for David, but I think we have enough a sense that the mission of the World Talent Economy Forum is to meet the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, which lower poverty, increase education, which is a major component of our forum here, and also at the same time create a opportunity. So I see Rob just jumped off, but I just want to say his contribution is phenomenal. So is David. We've been working together for a little bit now, and I see that it's only going to increase over time. And our mission will be to bring more people to the World Talent Economy Forum and level that playing field between the developed world and the developing world. And if we can do that, we could do it through education. Education is the real key to success for the future generations. And I think that's the ultimate message that I would share. We're going to implement more tools, but the tools will be in the service of bringing people more to the World Talent Economy Forum.
Thank you, Professor David Smith. If you want to add on behalf of World Talent Economy Forum for our people.
I believe this fills a critical space that's needed to be filled. Your topic choice is broad, which allows people to expand their baseline knowledge, to establish an area to build upon. And the other very important thing, as opposed to some of the traditional colleges and others, is your timeliness. In universities in particular, the half-life of information is real old. You get current all the time. And your role as a catalyst, your role as a mentor, your role of being the glue that ties part of this together is so important for developing nations to advance and to be able to collaborate as a peer with others. And the World Talent Economy Forum goes to great lengths to fill that role of being the glue that ties it all together. And I'm very privileged to be able to participate in this where I can.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor David Smith, Professor Marshall, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. Dear audience, please share our content. These contents are very valuable. I believe that you can get the real life experience as well as you get the industrial guidelines. It will helpful for your career development, and our government also gets some guidelines how to develop better policy, because all of them, those who join in World Talent Economy Forum, they are valuable. They have a very like strong background and experience from different part of the world, and hopefully with their contribution we can develop next new world. Thank you, Professor David Smith, and thank you, Mr. Marshall, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. Tomorrow we have debate. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye bye and take care.
Thanks.
Bye bye. Sure. Thank you.